morning, guys. My name's Dr. Robb, the Addiction Doctor, live in San Antonio today. Got a great guest on for you today, guys. I hope you've had a great week. Now, I got about, I don't know how many, a couple of hundred emails and texts last week wanting me to show the neural pathway being formed. I'll show that again later for you guys. In San Antonio, it's been sunny until yesterday when the weather came down and went down to a terrible 52 degrees in San Antonio. For anyone else in the world, that's like zero for us. It's very, very cold. So today's show is, I'll tell you why it's going to be awesome. First of all, we have Andrew Pierce on the show. Some of you might have already know of him. If you haven't bought his book, I'm going to be telling you about that. You need to buy that book. Mine's on its way. I have a PDF version today to read. Intriguing. Now, you know me, guys. I don't read anybody's book. I've not even read my fucking book. So why the hell should I read anybody else's book? But I like this guy. He has the same language. He doesn't do normal therapy like other people do from textbooks from the 50s and 60s. You know, he's created his own model, which is the Unified Theory of Recovery, which we're going to get into later. Really, really educated, knows his stuff. So that's why I like this guy. You know, we connect real good. If you've got any questions or concerns or comments, post them on here, guys, or on Facebook. I'll get to them and we'll talk about it with Andrew and we'll get through that. My week's been good. What can I say? It was supposed to be our calming down bit January after the craziness of the past 12 months. In all offices, we've got 5 offices around the world. Every single one of them was busy. Our telehealth took off like crazy and we helped a lot of people. We're just over 7,000 people now that I've helped with the company, going out to people over the last 30 years. And we love, I had something great yesterday. They said, it's not hard work, it's heart work. You know, it comes from the heart when you're talking to a patient. And whatever we tell ourselves, therefore we become. So I'm really big on internal dialogue, as you know. And if I drop a pen on the floor, I'm not a stupid idiot. I've just dropped a pen on the floor. Because as we go through life, our internal dialogue will talk us into anything. You know, my biggest saying is addiction and alcoholism will talk to you in your own voice, your own tone. You know you're doing something wrong. We know it. You're buying this behind your wife or girlfriend's back, or, you know, you're sneaking out for an affair. You get that gut feeling. That's real. It goes back generations to the tribal days. It's real. We know we're doing something wrong. With addiction and alcoholism, it's our own voice. You know, the voice that tells us to eat the food because you're hungry. The voice that tells us to drink water because we're thirsty. The hypothalamus plays into that and tells us to drink alcohol in our own voice. So we need to actually get in and redirect the neural pathways and neuroplasticity, mold the brain around. It's interesting stuff. We'll get into that again shortly. So if you've got any questions and concerns, big shout out from Rick in San Antonio for a start. Rick Pimenta. I'm sorry you've still got that flu or COVID, guys, whatever you've got. I hope to see you tomorrow. Get well soon, buddy. Get the wife to make you a cake. They are beautiful cakes. And to Jimmy over in Florida. Hey, Jimmy, I'll be over there in 3 weeks, buddy. I hope to meet up with you. Jennifer in Dallas. Hey, Jen, good to see you every single week. Great to see you here, guys. Tony in France. Thank you, Tony. I know it's probably a crazy hour where you are, but thank you for tuning in again, leaving your comments. And Jill says, can't wait to hear Andrew. I know of Andrew. So we've already got one fan on for Andrew. Hopefully we'll get thousands more as we go along. So hey guys, Andrew Pierce, you don't want to miss this, guys. In fact, before I bring Andrew on, just watch this. This is a new neural pathway being created. Let me get this out of the way because I will forget about it, okay? So we're putting a camera straight into the brain. We're watching neural pathways. So this could be a good or a bad neural pathway, but here we go. Just watch this real carefully. This is how a thought pattern is created. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So then thought patterns as we go through alcoholism. You know, I got this great demonstration, and again, somebody asked me last week, what does it mean? Well, let's say we got the brain here, and there's billions there, guys, but let's say this is a neural pathway. It starts obviously, repetition strengthens, confirms the neural pathways. So what happens with the normal neural pathway, let's say driving a car, you're learning so much and it comes out and it's this. That's how much neural pathway you have on this, one of the billions. What happens if you go away for 5 years and come back? That skill diminishes away until you've almost got to start from scratch and learning to drive the car. You can drive it, but you're going to be careful. You can't text your friend backing up how to drive. You've got to concentrate. When alcohol self-sabotaging your pathway is born like this is self-destruction, and we go away from it for a month or a year trying to get sober. When we come back, you see how the neural pathway doesn't diminish? So we start growing from there. That means that once you pick up, it's just like going to the restroom and coming back. That's your 20 years of sobriety. It's crazy. Jennifer over in Naples. That's your part of the country, I think, Andrew. Jennifer, can't wait for the interviews. Looking forward to it. Okay, guys, give me 1 second. Andrew Pierce will be on the show straight after this. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dr. Rob Kelly, the Addiction Doctor. This is Breaking Through Addiction every week on a Friday noon, CST, Central Standard Time. Tune in, get educated, have some fun. Andrew Pierce is on the show. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hey, Dr. Rob. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I don't have bad days. I have better days than others, but I don't have bad days today, which is awesome. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we get into the real good stuff.
Well, let's see. I'm a person in long-term recovery from addiction, which for me, the last time I had drugs and alcohol was April 26, 2014, after about an 18-year run involving all sorts of things, drinking 2 bottles of rum a day, plenty of cocaine, and I had a pot card for my shoulder from playing bass, don't you know? Yeah. So yeah, but eventually the wheels fell off when I added benzos, and that was about the end of the road for me. So I did a stint out at Betty Ford Center out in the desert, got my head on straight, and been running ever since.
What bass guitar do you play today? Or how many have you got, first of all?
I have a Tobias Basic 6 that I had Michael Tobias build for me back in 1987. It's on my wall right now. Wow. I play a 6-string bass primarily. I picked up an ESP 6-string, which was about 1/10 of the price of my Tobias, but it sounds just as good. The technology has really improved over the years.
Unbelievable, yeah, definitely. I have the Music Man in pink. Yeah, so it's my wife. She came on one day and she says happy birthday, and it's pink because I've not played for ages. Today I have a big music room in the house. I have about 14.
Well, you have to be a real man to play a pink bass.
I know, right? It takes a big personality to wear pink. Well, it does match my pink shoes, so I'm doing pretty good, I think. Talk to me. Yeah. Talk to me about your addiction. Talk about where did it first start, or where was you first aware that you took a drug or a drink that you knew you felt different?
Well, you know, if I wanted to be clever, I think I would go back to when I was a kid. A toddler. There's a guy, Dr. Gabor Mate, who talks a lot about childhood family dynamics and how it contributes to things like low self-esteem and loss of identity. And my parents were, my dad was a lawyer and my mom was an English major, and their mantra growing up was that children are to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And so there was a fairly narrow range of acceptable behaviors with them. And as a kid with ADD, you can imagine a lot of my behaviors fell outside of that narrow range. And of course, the feedback that I got would have been consistent with that dynamic. And so at a very young age, I learned to repress certain aspects of my personality in order to maintain attachment with my parents. And when I turned 13 and had that first hit of ganj, what happened was there was it had a profound impact on me when I first drank, because I didn't realize, because I had no basis of comparison, the baseline stress level of walking on eggshells since I was, a kid. to having that first hit of pot, that really set me up, I think, ultimately for a strong affinity for self-medication, which I did do until I was age 17 when I got in some legal trouble. And the judge said, well, you can go to prison for 3.5 years or you can go to treatment. So I elected to go to treatment.
Yeah, damn. Wow. What was your primary drug, or was your primary, was it alcohol?
Well, in growing up in central Wisconsin, drinking was the thing. But when I found cocaine, that was really, that was it for me. And looking back, I think with the ADD being a stimulant, it increased the dopamine D2, activity, which made it actually, I'm pretty sure I was self-medicating that, but it was also enjoyable.
What was it, the judge decision that made you come off or get sober, or did you internally want to do that but couldn't?
Well, I actually, no, no, I didn't want to come off of it. I was externally motivated by the judge to, get treatment. But when I was in treatment, I would say two things occurred. Number one, I was in a session where you can imagine, first of all, incredibly low self-esteem as a result of the decade or so leading up to that in a fairly hostile environment. Now, by the way, when I talk about my folks, I want to clarify in case mom's watching, right? What she also, you have to, I think I heard Robin say something that if you're going to blame somebody for all the shit in your life, you also have to blame them for all the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And my parents bestowed upon me a good command of the and good grammar and a lot of positive things too. From an emotional perspective, however, I think there was it was lacking, and no parent wakes up in the morning saying, "Gee, how can I fuck up my kids today?" Everyone does the best they can at all times.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in a group, I remember, and I was not particularly interdependent. I was always very self-reliant, and I didn't believe I deserved help. And the turning point for me was when the counselor, who was a smart guy apparently, made me write down all these little aspects of my life, dimensions of my life, finances, school, relationships, whatever's important to a 17-year-old, I guess. And I had to rip it up and throw it in the middle of the room and go around to each person in the group in the circle and ask them if they would help me put my life back together, which was an incredibly difficult thing to do. But the experience of everyone saying yes and then doing that had a really strong impact on me. It gave me a sense that maybe I didn't suck as much as I thought I did. So that experience of, feeling that I was okay, gave me permission to stay sober. And then I went to a halfway house, a sober living residence for 6 months, which taught me how to develop healthy relationships being sober, because I never had that capacity.
Yeah, it's amazing how that's all new to us. Even sex is new, relationships, feelings, all that stuff is raw to us when we first get into it. And I would say about 20% of people go back out drinking because of that. Just can't handle it. They've never done it so before without the right guidance. They're always going to go back. So I know Mum might be listening, and this is nothing to do with her, but where was your trauma as a child? Where was your trauma?
Oh, well, I was adopted as an infant. I don't know if that counts really. But I suppose there's always this idea, because my parents were, well off, and I think that most so-called normal people would probably think that would be able to say that I had a pretty good upbringing. But I think probably being adopted, the idea that your own mom didn't want you, especially when you think about how important attachment is from an evolutionary perspective. We're the most helpless for the longest period of time of any creature on the planet. And so if our parents don't want us, we're, we, in our calculus in our head, we associate that with death. And that dynamic played out throughout every primary relationship in my life until I got a handle on this crap. In fact, I would argue that codependency is probably more difficult to overcome than substance issues, as far as I'm concerned. Because control fallacy, we give people the keys to our happiness. We this unquestioned belief that somehow other people or our environmental factors are responsible for how we feel and how we react. And that's just a terrible, unquestioned belief that we have.
Do you still suffer from abandonment because of that adoption?
No, you know what? I'm just really hyper vigilant of it. When I, relationship stuff, I still catch myself editing my behavior in order to maintain attachment. I'm 90%, 95% better than I used to be when I had no self-awareness of it. However, I would say that's my last hero's journey, right? When I resolve that, then I will be truly free. But I suffer from that a little bit still.
Definitely. Give me your
Maybe
worst
you can help me with
time.
that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we'll get there. Give me your worst time in addiction, and then I want your best time in addiction. Give me an incident that you still cringe at, if there is any, that is, in your
You
past.
mean a bad time or a good time?
Yes. Well, both. First, let's start with the bad. What's a time that you keep going back to and going, damn?
Oh, the last day before I went into treatment.
What did that look like?
The wheels fell off. I write about it in my book. The book's a little bit anecdotal too. I came home let's see. Let me back up. I had bought about 300 Xanax from a dealer, and I hadn't really done benzos before, but he had them for like $200. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take them. He said, be careful with these, because he was intimately acquainted with my normal cocktail, right, of 2 bottles of rum and tons of Coke and pot. I don't remember much about that 2 months leading up to the April 26, 2014. But apparently I came home the night before. This is my wife's. Well, I woke up on Saturday on my wife's birthday, and I was sleeping on top of the covers, which is unusual for most people to sleep under the covers, and my wife was gone. And I thought maybe she went to the store to pick some stuff, and I called up, yeah, hey, what's going on? She said, don't you remember what happened last night? Which was never a good question.
No.
Apparently I had told her about the hot stripper I'd been dating for the last couple of years.
Oh my God.
And that I was leaving her for her, and a couple of other details that I probably won't go into. And so she said, someone's coming to get you at 2:00 to take you to Betty Ford. She had spent the night, on the phone trying to find a bed. She didn't really know what was going on really the whole time.
Yeah.
So I looked at my watch. I'm like, well, I still have a couple hours. So I went down to my car, hopped in, and I found my car, which is what I did every morning. I had to find my car, and got in. When I was driving to my watering hole in Burbank, I looked and I noticed the glass from the passenger side mirror was missing. I thought, well, somebody must have needed it more than I did. I got out of my car to go into the bar, and I looked, and half of the car was like it was almost missing. It was like aluminum foil, and usually, of course, the alignment would be off or something. But whatever I hit or whatever hit me didn't affect the alignment. But I thought, well, no. I checked for blood and hair, and didn't see any. So I went inside and had my usual last hurrah, hopped in the car. Apparently I made it home in time for my trip. But just the pain that I inflicted, to answer your question, on my wife that day, and I don't remember it really too much at all. And so that was probably the low point. I don't know. I guess also I did a lot of session work down there with people that were kind of famous, and I don't remember a lot of the sessions. So I guess it would be nice to have some of those memories. Yeah. And then but the good part, I guess, from a false ego sense, was always having the Coke, and all the strippers like Coke, and all the things that come with that.
Yeah, I first got into I was an alcohol-only person until I had I was session at Abbey Road for quite a long time, and that's where I first found cocaine. And an alcoholic can have cocaine, and a drug addict can have alcohol, and it's just crazy. It first set it off there. It was phenomenal. Talk to me about your band days. That must have been fun. Did that feed into your addiction, you think?
Well, what's interesting is when I was out in LA, the first time around in the 80s, that was when I would play at Gazzari's and the Troubadour and the Whiskey, the Roxy along the Sunset Strip. I was sober during that. That was during my sober stint. I was about 20 years old. And what's interesting, and this kind of ties into some of the book stuff, but when I was my true self, when I wasn't doing what I thought my parents wanted me to do, when I wasn't doing what I thought other people wanted me to do, it seems like life became fairly effortless. And within 18 months, I went out to the music school, Musicians Institute out there, right? And so a lot of famous folks were, my teachers, Tim Bogert from Vanilla Fudge, we'd hang out. Anyway, but when I was doing what came most naturally to me, when I was fulfilling my potential as myself, things became effortless. I went from a kid with hay coming out of my ears in central Wisconsin to playing in front of 10,000 people, within about 18 months. And I was sober. I made decisions that were aligned with my values. And then my girlfriend at the time got pregnant, and I figured I better do the right thing, whatever, and I quit. I left my career, and life was a struggle for quite a while thereafter.
What about the best thing in recovery that you've done?
The best thing in recovery for me has been recovering my true self. And asserting my true self and having experiences that disconfirm my shame-based self-perceptions.
Yeah.
It's like a residual self-image. And in the book, I talk about the scene in The Matrix where Neo and Morpheus are in that white room with the TV, and he's reaching back and he's like, "What's this?" And he said, "This is your residual self-image." And for me, my residual self-image was extremely shame-based, and so developing self-awareness of that stuff has been beneficial for me, because as I have made consistently right decisions, my reality has improved dramatically, and I still have that residual shame-based self-image that kind of drags along like an anchor that I need to be vigilant for so I don't self-sabotage. But and interpersonal relationships, probably, because love, the ability to be authentic. And that's what my practice is, right? We're having true, real conversations about things. And Brene Brown talks about love as a human connection as a result of authenticity, right? Yeah. And so that, for me, that's the best part of life right now. I love traveling too, but that's irrelevant.
Wow, that's phenomenal. We are so much alike, it's unreal. It's crazy.
Well, I was listening to an interview with you, and I thought, oh, that guy's kind of like me.
Right? It's crazy. It's crazy. When I take a trip down to Florida, and I'm also taking a trip to Naples in March to see a patient.
Well, we'll
I will sure to look you up, without a doubt. Hey guys, quick break from Take 12 Radio here. We'll be right back with Andrew. We're going to look at his program and how he came up with it. Don't forget to check out Monty Man on take12radio.com. Take12radio.com. He's an amazing guy. I do Dr. Robb Hour every month. If you jump on the website, you'll see me there. Come and join us both. It's a great radio show. It's the longest running radio show in the world ever, apparently. Been going for years and years and years, so check that out. Okay, so before I ask you about your stuff that you do in your practice, talk to me about your opinion only on treatment centers as a whole.
Well, I think they're good for getting people stabilized and breaking the patterns of when they're out in the real world. Because like you pointed out in your neural connection thing, I saw some videos like that on Dispenza, where a lecture he gave, which was really great. And, so it's great for developing new information and new belief systems and understanding. But those neural connections tend to prune apart in the absence of reinforcement. And so that's why a lot of people that go to treatment centers, number one, they think, oh, okay, I'm fixed. And then they go back and relapse if they don't engage with a therapist or some sort of aftercare. But I don't think that anybody that goes into this line of work intends to, they don't do it for malicious reasons. I think that the numbers of people that the statistics of people that come out of treatment are, they're so-so. But it really also, it's, in my opinion, is the job of a good clinician to convert external motivation, which nobody's there because they wake up one morning, I think I'm going to go to treatment today.
Yeah.
Right? They're usually externally motivated, and so the job of a good clinician is to convert that locus of motivation to internal. And my guy at Betty Ford, Mike Potter, he asked me a good question after I was sober for a couple of weeks. So I regained access to my accurate access to my emotions and so on. He was smart enough to appeal to my aspirational nature. As an ADD guy, I had started businesses. I did a couple of I was like music publications. I was like Forrest Gump. I was an investment advisor. And he said, Andrew, if you could get out of your own way, what could you accomplish?
Wow.
And that, for me, that moment converted my locus of motivation to, I'm here because I want to impress my folks so that they think I'm sober, so they'll be okay with giving me my inheritance when they die, which I kept waiting for that. That never happened, right? And so for me, after that, I was like, what could I accomplish if I could just get out of my own way? And that's kind of what it's become my obsession, right? To fulfill my true potential. And so, treatment centers, I think they're good for breaking the pattern, getting people out of their old environment. Ultimately it's up to them and to how motivated people are to get sober.
When you decided to open practice and work with people with addictions as well as other things, what was missing in the treatment model that you was experiencing, and why did you start your own model?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, what I did was I started out when I went to Hazelden Betty Ford Graduate School of Addiction Studies, which they primarily are 12-step facilitation, right? But we also learned other clinical models, CBT, other things, smart recovery, et cetera. And for me, when I was given the reins of my own treatment center, intensive outpatient, Cypress West intensive outpatient in Naples, which we closed last January. I just noticed there were huge gaps in the clinical model, the 12-step clinical model. But the biggest challenge, for instance, the mindfulness thing, for me, that always seemed a little bit woohoo, But for me, the practical application is developing the capacity to think about what we're thinking about, right? Metacognition, the ability to separate become the observer of our thoughts, right? I think that's got a clinical value in itself. So I recommend clients, pick up the Headspace app or something like that, which is a good rudimentary approach. So the meditation thing was different. They don't really talk about that in standard treatment centers, so they don't emphasize it enough. Also, the higher power thing, the spirituality. Most people, for valid reasons, have a problem with adopting a spiritual perspective. They ranging from severe shame. They don't believe that they would deserve a connection with any sort of higher power. Some people just do logically say, well, if there was a higher power, why would all this bad stuff happen, right? So there are any number of valid reasons why people have a problem with the spiritual aspect of recovery. In my book, I don't make an epistemological argument that, yes, there is or is not a higher power. I don't actually care about that. I'm interested in the belief system and a plausibility that there could be one. And my job is to develop at least a circumstantial argument that's so compelling that it's not a leap of faith that's required. It's like, oh, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whose higher power you plug in. Yeah. And all the benefits that come from that. So yeah, that was missing. Yeah, I would say those two things: the meditational aspect, the Eastern philosophy, and also it doesn't address the shame. I mean, there's a fourth step
Yes.
that talks about doing an inventory, but the shame and an intellectual understanding of how family dynamics set people up, often for addiction, and also codependency.
Yeah.
The role that in aftercare, once we're out of our system, how we can be, if we're not aware of it, we can cognitive distortions, control fallacy, we can be victimized if we allow it by environmental factors, and teaching people that we have a choice whether or not to give people the keys to our happiness.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a
So
lot.
how to navigate that, and how to, all the things that come with getting clients to internalize that stuff.
Give me 2 key points of your program that really affect people.
One would be the fact that the nature of now, the present moment. I provide psychoeducation, or actually just education, on quantum field theory. The idea that subatomic particles are not the fundamental elements of the universe, but in fact that they're derivative, they're epiphenomena of an immaterial 17 quantum fields, basically, that exist, 3 of which produce the quarks that are that comprise the subatomic particles. And I use the example of, if you blew the nucleus of a hydrogen atom up to the size of a golf ball, the diameter of the probability field would be 3 miles across. And so there's all that empty space out there, and people would say, well, what's in that empty space? Is it really empty? And the answer is no. It consists of these fields of energy. And I refer to the double slit experiment, the idea where physicists would observe, they would run an electron beam through 2 slits, and it would create an interference pattern on a sensory screen. And they thought they would get really smart. I actually show a little segment, an animated segment from What the Bleep Do We Know, where there's a guy that explains all this stuff.
Great movie.
And then they would do one electron at a time, because they figured the electrons were interfering with each other and causing that. But if they put 1 electron at a time through this double slit apparatus, it would not create it would just create 2 bars that align line of sight with the electron gun. And it still created an interference pattern. So when they observed where which slit or the electron went through, it would create a clump pattern. So the act of observation had a material impact on the outcome. And people were scratching their heads for a long time about this. And so the solution to that dilemma of how just observing the apparatus could somehow have an effect on it was resolved by quantum field theory, because scientists had been mistakenly perceiving themselves as being separate from the apparatus. And the quantum fields go through everything. They go through us and the apparatus, and our conscious knowledge, awareness of the system itself had an impact. And so that's where everything changes. And so from there, I would build up the idea, you just scale it up, right? Instead of subatomic particles, our own consciousness basically coalesces reality. And so that concept in itself provides hope, right? It eliminates victimization, because all of a sudden we're the co-gods, we're co-authors of reality, instead of being just victims of, like Curly on the Three Stooges, victims of circumstance, right?
Yeah.
And so hope is a really important aspect for recovery, I think, because people have been beaten down for so long. And so that's one aspect, and all of the implications that come with an understanding of the true nature of reality and how now works. That's one aspect. I think is a core aspect of my recovery process. The second one would tie into the importance of authenticity, recovering our true self, because if in fact our consciousness, what we focus on, tends to coalesce into reality by virtue of our consciousness and the mechanism that's provided by the quantum fields, We know that in our true self, our authentic state, we put out a much more congruent signature, electromagnetic signature between our heads and our hearts when we add emotion. And so what I've done is I've developed something called the magic wand thought experiment, where I give somebody a magic wand. It's basically a supersized solution focused therapy thing, where I have clients describe with great detail, if they had a magic wand, what would they be like? What would their world be like? Who would be in it? What would they do? How would they bring their gifts to the world, their true self, if you will? And two things come with that, right? One is that when they'll usually come back with a really pathetic 2-paragraph thing, and that helps me to expose a lot of pathology in their thinking, right? Unquestioned beliefs about what they believe is possible for themselves, and so on. Someone will say, "Well, I wanted to be realistic." It's like, hello, it's a magic wand, right?
Yeah, right.
But once we develop this, it also exposes shame, right? But what's amazing to me when I would do this at first was many people in early recovery literally could not conjure even an image of what it would be like, what their life would be like if they could make it any way they wanted. Yeah. They're either so other focused that they had to adapt and paint a picture of who they are to gain external validation, which of course never hits the mark, or they feel so ashamed, or both, that they've never bothered to think for themselves what they want because they don't feel they deserve it. I remember when I went through treatment, these words came out of my mouth. I said, when I die, everyone else's life is going to flash before my eyes. and I know it's fun. It's always good for a chuckle, but that was really how I felt. And so I had to recover my authentic self. And so the magic wand thought experiment is a core aspect. That combined with the field-based understanding of how things work. With the meditation, I'm actually putting together a 4-day workshop that I'll be taking on the road, where the first day we'll do the magic wand thought experiment, and we'll process that in groups, and that'll be sort of in the background throughout the 4 days. Day 2 will be about the authentication process, resolving those things that are exposed in the magic wand. Day 3 will be about the science, the quantum mechanics, so we develop an understanding that it can work. And then the 4th day will be putting what I would call a 4D movie. That's a result of the magic wand thought experiment. The 4th dimension being the emotion, the strong emotion. We'll put it to test in actual meditative guided meditations that I'll have customized for their magic wand thought experiment. And then after that boot camp, that 4-day thing, once a week, we'll check in to see how the extent to which people have been doing this. They start noticing synchronicities that come up in their realities that reaffirm that maybe someone's listening, right? There's some there. And that's certainly proven to be the case every time that I've done this with any clients.
Changing lives, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting towards the end of time, unfortunately. Tell us about your book. Hang on a sec, guys. I'm going to put it across the bottom of the screen so you can jump on. Where can we find it? Give us a bit rundown. And then I think it's on the website, yeah?
Yeah, it's on andrewgpierce.com, andrewgpierce.com. There you go. You can find it there under projects. It's also available on Amazon. It's got all 5-star reviews. It basically describes it's divided into 2 parts. Part 1 talks about the etiology of addiction and what it is about addiction and the things that we talked about that make adoption of a spiritual perspective very difficult, right? And part 2 of the book talks about the actual science, how reality works, and how the nature of reality itself is conducive to adoption of a spiritual perspective that's not judgmental. It's based on Eastern philosophy, the universe, that sort of thing. And it's also anecdotal. I mean, it's quite literally my own personal journey from being a spiritual skeptic to somebody who I'm able to derive a lot of the benefits that have come from a recovery standpoint. I've been able to derive a lot of the benefits that lower my stress level. It takes away fuel for the desire to self-medicate. The idea that, there is a way that I can have control over my destiny. The idea that the more authentic that I am, that I have the courage to assert my true self, that I will be rewarded by getting those things that I truly desire, the love and connection and relationships. So yeah, the book is, it's very conversationally written. It's very dense. And so I'm actually right now in the process of doing a study guide workbooks that go along chapter by chapter. People will read it and be like, oh yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. But they don't have a chance to process it because it's so densely written. And so I've got a workbook that I'm working on chapter by chapter that has prompts, and so that people can really personalize it and slow down. And there's 26 hours of video content corresponding to it. Right in the table of contents, there's a link to my webpage. It's andrewgpierce.com/book links. And it's got documentaries, TED Talks, subject matter experts, so that people, it's not just me pulling this stuff out of my ass. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the people. There's documentaries that help, and illustrations, primarily animations, that really bring the content to life, because it's fairly intense academic material, but I've been able to explain it in a way that the feedback I've gotten is that the average person can comprehend it sufficiently to put it to use. So we needed a book like this. When I talk about it in a recovery setting, so many people, a surprising number of people, have a problem with the spiritual aspects. And they just love this book. And I'm just happy to be able to help people access that.
That's beautiful, man. I love it. Yeah, that spirituality is, I think the spiritual side of life and God and everything is I don't know, man. I mean, when you just come to believe, it's circumstantial. I'm traveling back from a plane from Manchester to San Antonio a year ago or so, and it's terrible weather, and the rain and the thunderstorm, it was horrible. And about an hour into the flight, seatbelt signs were on, the plane dropped. I don't know how many feet or thousands of feet, but it dropped. And I tell you what, everything went quiet. Everybody had hold of the arms of the chairs, and you could hear a pin drop. And my friend leant over and he said, "Hey, Rob, bet there's not many fucking atheists on this plane right now." I thought, yes, it's circumstantial. When it gets bad enough, you'll believe. And don't forget, guys, when you have a spiritual awakening, psychic change, your DNA changes. Because it's important that we're not the same guy again. Andrew, I want to thank you so much. This is not the last conversation we're going to have, believe me. Thank you so much for your knowledge. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy. Guys, the website's at the bottom, Andrew G for golf, andrewgpierce.com. Go on there, see what he's all about. He's an amazing guy. Resolve Spiritual Criticism and Recovery is the book. I suggest that you read that book because it sounds absolutely amazing. As soon as I read it in the next day or two, I'm going to get on and tell you guys a little bit about it, and then you go buy your own copy if you don't do it before. But for now, Andrew, thank you so much, man. You're the best.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to talking.
Thank you. To the end of the show, guys, just wrapping up here. Don't forget to jump on the website, Andrew G. Pierce. That was a phenomenal conversation, guys. I tell you, you know me, I usually don't speak to therapists or stuff because, here we go with the complaints. They're just not as knowledgeable enough. They do their best, God bless them. But when you sit down with a proper, educated guy, especially around addiction, okay, then you get that, I don't know, you get the feeling that he knows what he's talking about. And as he went through explaining his program, phenomenal. I've got hairs on the back of my neck, but I'm so glad there's other people out there doing this deal because it's very lonely when you're out there on your own. Phenomenal. Don't forget, guys, every single Friday at noon Central Time, you can come and see me. Daddy, please stop drinking. If some of you remember, that's the last words my eldest daughter said to me before we reunited a couple of years ago. It's on Amazon. It's on my website, robbkelly.com. Go and buy a copy. I think it's $9. So here's the deal. Go and buy a copy. All that $9, by the way, goes out. We give $150,000 last year back to you guys in the community. Those guys that are struggling, they want to get the kids back, they want the court fees, whatever it is, we go out and we pick people to kind of sponsor. That's where your money's going. I've never seen a dime off that, never will. In the last 6 months, it's out. Don't want to do it. If you don't like it, though, send me an email. I'll refund your money. How's that? And always remember, robbkelly.com, 90-day program. You love it. Again, I promise you, you come and do the business and relapse after following our direction. I'll refund every dime you put into this program. The only person in the world that offers that. You must be crazy, Dr. Robb. No, I just think that there's some programs in here, like Andrew's, like mine, and a bunch of other guys out there that's worth doing this deal. So let me write a real chat. Oh, thank you, Andrew. I shall give you a call this week without a doubt. Every Friday, guys, at 12 noon CST. Jump in. Brand new guest next week. And brand new guests every week. If you want to be on the show, here's the interesting part, because we've got some big names on the show, as you all know. So if you want to be on the show, drop Courtney, our producer. Courtney Davis does an amazing job. Thank you, Courtney, for everything you do. She works tirelessly to get people on the show. Call her, text her, find her on Facebook. Your story that you think you Mr. Nobody or Mrs. Nobody back home, your story could change somebody's life, because that is what it's all about. It's about changing lives, saving lives, and being out there. And remember, guys, it's not hard work, it's heart work. I got that yesterday off a podcast that was on. Phenomenal. Hope you have a great week, guys. Text in, call me, whatever you got to do to contact. For those guys that are in the know, San Antonio meeting tomorrow. We'll be there 9:30. And then we'll be there until about 12:30. Come and visit us, private message me. I'll show you all about that. But in the interim period, remember, love somebody this week. Compliment somebody. When we compliment somebody or say thank you, dopamine's released into my brain. It's a free drug. Let's get high this week, guys, on dopamine. Say thank you. Compliment somebody. Believe it or not, it will make their day. For now, guys, thank you. Thank you for Andrews being on the show. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you next time, guys. Same time, same Batcave.